How has the mission evolved that I began to honor women who served? It's been 40 years since I founded it in 1983, and then the dedication was in 1993. But we named the project the Vietnam Nurses Memorial Project because I thought that's all the women who were in Vietnam. Then after we began it, we started getting letters, and we got letters from women who served in other places besides Vietnam, but they'd been in the military. I received letters from Red Cross women photojournalists, and it was like this epiphany that I had. It's like, oh, this is not just about nurses. Women were serving all over the world in a variety of capacities, and in Vietnam even. So we expanded it and changed our name to the Vietnam Women's Memorial Project. I just ran into a friend who was a nurse in Guam, and there were nurses in the Philippines, and there were nurses in Japan, and then there were the photojournalists and the traffic controllers and women in administration who also served. So we didn't want this monument to be literal. We wanted it to be about women, so any woman could connect to this monument and feel the recognition and the honor that she deserves.
I'm Edie McCoy Meeks, and I served in the Army Nurse Corps from 1968 to 1970, and I was in Vietnam from July of '68 to July of 1969. I was in Saigon for 6 months and Pleiku for 6 months. Diana and I actually arrived in Pleiku on the same day, and we're both from Minnesota, so that was an instant connection for us. Was Minnesota. We lived in the same hooch, which was the container that we lived in, and she had her room right next door to mine. So we worked on different wards, but became very close, especially when we were rocketed all the time. Right. And then she would come scooting into my room. We would hide under the bed. They built the beds higher up off the ground so that we could get under them in case of a rocket attack. And you had to wear your flak jacket and your helmet under the bed. So that's what we did together. When we came back, there was no one there to support us. In fact, you didn't tell anybody that you had been in Vietnam. In fact, the nurses coming over to Vietnam would tell us, as soon as you get stateside, take your uniform off, because you aren't going to have a nice reception at all. So I think that the bond is simply that we all worked together for one thing, which was to bring the guys home, to make them, help them heal and bring them home. But also just that bond of adversity, that you're speaking a language that nobody else speaks. And that when you tell somebody who's been over there something, you don't have to explain anything. They totally understand it right away.
My name is Joanne Martin, and I'm from North Carolina. Very active in the American Legion, so it's a department of North Carolina. I was a Navy nurse, went into the service in 1969 and served a total of 32 years, mostly reserve. Most of the time I was on the West Coast near San Diego, and I've also served here in Washington, D.C. at the Bureau of Medicine and Surgery. I see the families that are represented here today, the children. I sat next to two young people that they will remember this many, many decades. They might not understand it, but they'll ask their moms or their grandmothers what this is all about. And it's about the generations to carry forth what these women did.
The Vietnam Women's Veterans Memorial is very important to the American Legion. American Legion celebrates its diversity because we know that a veteran is a veteran, regardless of gender or race. We have to support each other. We have to have each other's back. Just the amount of sacrifice that's depicted on these walls and in this mall is very humbling to not only your average civilian, but to us that serve as well, because they gave the ultimate sacrifice.
My name is Amelia Jane Carson, go by Jane. I'm originally from Greenville, South Carolina, and I currently live in Santa Fe, New Mexico. My experience in the military was 27 years, and I served in all positions all the way up to, I was even chief nurse of the Army National Guard, which was the best job I had in the military. I started out as a major assigning other nurses. I was chief nurse in Korea, head nurse in the community hospital at Fort Meade, Maryland. Wonderful, wonderful tour. And of course, Vietnam. I was a year, actually 13 months, because I brought home a little girl who was orphaned. And so I had to stay an extra month, but my tour was 12 months. I was head nurse at the 312th Evacuation Hospital, and then they made me head nurse of the Vietnamese unit, and that's where Sharon was killed. It was the most gratifying time, and yet the most heartbreaking time, because you couldn't save them all. And when Sharon was killed, and also a young 12-year-old Vietnamese girl was killed by this rocket, it was devastating to the whole hospital, because here it is right in the middle of the hospital, and we couldn't save her, couldn't save them. Diane Evans, who is my absolute hero, she wouldn't give up, you know, because people would come and they would say terrible things about us. And we had to go back to Congress twice and go through all these committees that all the memorials have to go through. But boy, she just would not give up. And I admired her so much. I would go to the end of the earth for Diane Evans. Women veterans come from society. So we're a cross-section of society, and they need to participate in their country and in their democracy, because we're going to lose it otherwise. And I want them to know that they can accomplish whatever they want. If they want to do something, follow Diane Evans' roadmap, because she's the one that is incredible.